Brenda, welcome to the On Purpose podcast, my young friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dude, I was so excited to get you on here. And it's like we were talking off the air. I recently did an episode with John Fabricatori, who I respect and I appreciate his opinion on the border stuff. His life work has been law enforcement at the border. And I was wanting to get somebody that was maybe a more liberal leaning view to discuss that with me, just so I can learn, because I'm super interested in just learning as much as I can. And then I realized I wouldn't trust them. I wanted somebody that I could trust, that I could talk to about this. And I started remembering back to when Brenda Mugica was just this little girl, my backyard neighbor. And I was like, I remember your story a little bit and your family coming here from Mexico and your mom calling me gringo all the time because she didn't speak English and I speak Spanish. And I thought, this is a perfect person to come on the show and share the story of coming to America for this dream with her family and remind everybody that it's humans, it's real people that are out there getting caught up in the craziness of politics on the border. So I'm thankful. One, I'm thankful to have you in my life. I love you guys and we talk about you all the time. And two, I'm grateful that you're willing to come on and kind of share your story with us, Brenda.
Well, that means a lot to me, so I am excited to be here. Thank you again.
How old do you think you were when I first met you? I was trying to track that down.
I want to say I was 10.
10. So we had all just moved to Fort Collins in
Yes.
Colorado. You're about 10.
Well, actually, no. I moved to Fort Collins when I was 8, and then a month later, I turned 9.
Mm,
And we lived in an apartment
okay.
first, and then we moved to the home where you were our neighbor.
Yeah, I love that. And you were like the translator for the families between us. If I wanted to talk to your mom and dad, I had to go through you.
Yes, I was a translator for all my brothers, all my everyone, and I was 10 calling a realtor telling him we wanted to buy a house. I mean it was yeah.
Uh, I'll never forget the first time your mom called me a gringo and the look on your face as a little girl, like, Mom, I don't think you're supposed to call him that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, she still does it. My husband.
Well, Brenda, thanks for getting on the show. And I'm excited to share your story with our audience around the world and remind people that no matter what we do at the end of the day, it's humans that are impacted. And our job is to impact the world by being kind and grateful to each other. So I'm excited to share a story. But Brenda, before we do, I know you're a big workout person still. You still doing CrossFit?
No, not CrossFit.
Or what'd
No,
you
I
what'd you
stopped
get
doing
into now?
CrossFit. I'm just doing weightlifting, just gym.
Weightlifting and chasing your husband and Nico around there.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right. All right. Well, like a good workout, though, I can't get you going here without a warm up. We got to have a warm up so that people know who Brenda is. So, are you ready to get warmed up with us, Brenda?
Yes, let's see. Let's see what you got.
Oh, man. You ready for this? Here we go. All right. You are stranded on a deserted island and you get one food for the rest of your life. What does Brenda want to be eating?
I would say tacos.
What are you going to do with those tacos?
Um, they're gonna be barbacoa tacos.
Oh, wow. Are you
Yeah.
cooking them or somebody else cooking them?
No, someone else is cooking them.
All
Yeah. No, I
right.
do
All
not
right.
know how to cook.
All right. You get one superpower. What superpower do you want and why would you want it?
Fly, to fly. Um, to just feel free and go anywhere I want and see many things from a different view.
Yeah, that's a good one. Favorite book?
Oh man, there's many. Um, gosh, I'm spacing it. It's called the has habits in the title. I'm sure you've
Seven
heard of it.
Atomic Habits or
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes.
okay, what's your favorite part of that or what'd you learn from it?
Um, just how having uh good habits is very important and staying consistent. The consistency.
Nice. You get to have dinner with one person. They could either have passed on already or still be with us. Who do you want to have dinner with, and what do you want to ask them?
My grandmother. I met her, but she had Alzheimer's. So I never really got to actually talk with her. And she was a very, very hard worker. Um, I look up to her a lot. I would love to, yeah, just ask her what is one thing she would recommend
Mm.
or do different. And just get advice from her.
Is that your mom's dad or your
My
dad's
dad's
mom? That's
mom.
what I meant. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
she was down in Mexico City as well.
Yep. She was an entrepreneur. She owned many homes and a cafe, and so a restaurant. Um, and so she actually just little thing. She unfortunately lost her business because she would give away food to everyone. She was friends with everyone, and she wanted to just simply
Yeah.
help everyone. And so since she did that a lot, she kind of went down. But yeah, she still owned a lot of property, and she started from zero. So
Man, I bet she'd have some great stories for you.
oh yeah.
All right. You feeling warmed up? That wasn't
Yeah,
that
I'm
bad,
good.
huh? You're good. Now you're
Yes, no.
loose. All right, Brenda, I would love to hear from your perspective what it was like when your family packed up from Mexico City, I believe, and
Hmm.
decided to come to the United States. What were you told as a little person? Why were you doing that? What'd you feel?
So it's six of us. I remember my dad leaving and saying, I'm going to go to the US and I'll be back in a month. And the US, okay, I thought it was just down the street, right? So, um, yeah, I didn't see my dad and my brothers for a whole month. And I remember telling my mom, are they going to come back? And so the reason I left was to go to Fort Collins and just see what it was like. Um, because we were struggling in Mexico. So when my dad came back, he said, "Okay, well, let's work on getting your visa to go to the US." And so my the application started and we interviewed, and I remember my mom telling me, "Say you're going to go to Disneyland." When if they ask you anything. And
Yeah.
so I remember, okay, so I'm gonna go to Disneyland, so I'm gonna go to Disneyland. And so they asked me the question, I said that, and we got approved for our visa. So it was myself, my dad, and my mom who got approved for our visa, but my brothers didn't. The
Now
rest of my
was
family didn't.
they were older than you, correct?
Yeah, they were older. Yeah, so I was 7, and I think the youngest one was 17, 18.
Why didn't they get approved,
They look at your income. So they look at all
Um,
your history. So if you own property in Mexico, they look at your income. If you have education, reasons to why you wouldn't stay in the US, that you are very stable in Mexico. So
okay.
that's one of the things they look at. And so my dad was a retired police officer in Mexico. We had a home. And so yes, going to Disneyland was something that could be just a family thing, just going and they will come back, right? But my brothers on the other side, they didn't have education, they weren't going to college, they were young. So I think that's what made it hard for them to get approved. Um, and so yeah, from there we went to Fort Collins.
Okay.
Okay. And then the rest is history. I mean, my parents, once again, they always had their visa and their passport, so they would always go back and forth, go to Mexico for 3 months, come back, and they left me with my sisters and brothers, and they let my visa expire. So at that point, after it was 6 months, after 6 months of being in the U.S., if you don't leave the country, then you're considered um, you let your visa expire and you're an illegal at that point.
Right.
So at 10 years old, I was an illegal immigrant
And
living
you
in the
were
US.
and you were in school and stuff.
I was in school. Hmm.
Yeah. And
I remember, yeah. So
go ahead. You remember what?
I just remember I went to Johnson Elementary. If you're from Fort Collins and know of that school, I was the only Mexican in the whole school that that was there, and they did not know what to do with me.
What do you mean?
It was in 2000, and so there was no ESL program. There was no one else knew Spanish. So there was no way that I could communicate with anyone. So then I remember a teacher bought me a little translator.
What?
And that's how I would communicate with teachers. And I remember going home and crying every day because I thought I would go back home one day because they would tell me that we're going to go back home tomorrow, and that tomorrow never came, right? But it was just, I struggled because I couldn't communicate with anyone. I couldn't communicate with kids, teachers, homework.
Wow. So you didn't even speak English when you came, and you literally thought you were just coming to hang out, but home was Mexico City.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When did you realize that like you probably weren't going back?
I would say, probably a year until they actually told me, we're not going to go back. This is your new home. And I remember asking, when are we going to Disneyland? And I never went to Disneyland. I still haven't been to
You
Disneyland.
still wanted
So
that trip.
yeah, I clearly remember. And my mom and dad were very no filter, just we're not going. This is your life, so just deal with it
And
at
what
9 years old.
what was the reasoning? Like, why did they tell you, or what do you now maybe as an adult looking back on their reasoning, what was that?
I think they just, well, there was no money, right? There was no money to go to Disneyland. And the reasoning to not going back was because we were looking for the American dream, right? That's the reason why we came here. Um, there was no, so at my dad was, I would say 45 at that time. There's no jobs for a 45-year-old male. So we needed money. We needed to support each other. So my dad, all my brothers and sisters, we all lived in the same home in Mexico. Um, and so yeah, it was just we needed a change.
So then when you come to Fort Collins and Colorado or United States, do I remember right? Did your family start a business, carpet cleaning or something maybe?
Yes, they
Okay.
started yeah, so they actually worked in a restaurant, the Breakfast Club. I don't know if,
Oh yeah, I remember
but
that.
yep, the Breakfast Club as dishwashers. And then years later, I would say like 2 years later, they started a cleaning company, business and carpet cleaning. So, and they still have that.
Oh, they still do.
Yeah, they still do that. Hmm.
Gosh, that's 20 some years now.
That's 20. Yep.
Wow, good for them. What was it like? Because if I remember right, your mom was my feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, she kind of wanted to go back to Mexico, or she went back a
Yes.
little more than your dad did.
Yes. I want to say my dad raised me. My mom would leave to Mexico for 6 to 9 months, and I was with my dad. So, and she would go because she didn't know the language. She doesn't know how to drive. And so there was
That's
no
right.
transportation. Yeah, no transportation. She needed my brothers to take her to Walmart, right? And if they were working, she would be stuck at home until they were available. And so she felt she didn't like that. So that's why she would go and stay there. She has family over there, so that's another big reason.
Right. So what was that transition like then? So you're used to being around your mom and dad. Now your mom's going back and forth. You're in a place where you got to learn a new language and customs. What was probably was there a moment that stood out to you as like, man, I can do this, or this is going to work for me?
Yeah, I would say at when I started high school, that's when my mom was gone even more. It was a whole year that she was gone. And it kind of hit me that I was so many things happened. We lost our home where we were living in Water Glen, where we were neighbors. We lost that home in 2008.
Yeah, with like
And
just so many
yep,
other people, right?
Yep, I remember. Yeah, and so we lost that, and then from there everything fell apart because we rented out an apartment, my dad and I. I was 17 and I worked at McDonald's for 30, 35 hours a week while I was in high school with fake social. I literally made up the social and contacted a guy and printed out a social security card. And that's the only reason that I could have worked at McDonald's. I actually think I was 16 and I said I was 18 to help my dad pay the rent in that apartment. And so then my dad said, I can't do this anymore. You're working, you're helping me. It shouldn't be that way. We own a house in Mexico. We don't pay rent over there. I'm gonna go with your mom.
Mm.
And then your brothers are gonna help me. Now that's kind of backwards, right? My dad at first needed to help my brothers because they were young. And
Right.
so now it's okay, now I'm older, they're stable, they're adults. Now they need to help us and support us. So then my mom and dad said, okay, bye. We're gonna go to Mexico. You can stay with your brother in the living room.
Right.
And so I was 17, and that's when it hit me. I said, I can't, I don't have parents essentially that are gonna be able to support me. I have to support myself. And so I said, I'm gonna graduate a year early because I need to work full time and I have to graduate high school too. So I graduated a year early, and during that time, my mom became a citizen resident,
Okay.
a U.S. resident. I was 16. Um, and so from there, I had to, yeah, I graduated a year early, like I said, from high school, and then started the process for me to get my citizenship,
Let me ask you,
residence actually.
right, right. Let me ask, were you worried or did it weigh on you as a little person going through school that you knew your visa was expired? Like, was that a concern? Because obviously I've never experienced it, but I wonder, like from your perspective, was that an issue for you? Were you worried about your legal status in school and stuff?
Not in school, but I would say in life, yes. I remember we were driving, and now I laughed, but back in the day, would my dad would say, "Hey, wear your seatbelt because if we get pulled over, the migra's gonna send us to Mexico." Right? So we grew up with the fear of cops connecting it with the migra, which is the border patrol,
Okay.
to deport us. And so, yeah, yeah, every time, hey, don't get in trouble because the migra's gonna take us. Hey, be careful out there because the migra.
Which is crazy, right? Because we were good friends. Like you
Mm-hmm.
and Rafita and Frida always came over to our house and we hung out. And your parents knew I was a policeman,
Yeah, yeah.
but so they weren't afraid of that, though, or were
No,
they?
I think we trusted you.
Yeah.
Where you were open, right? You would go to our parties.
Oh, we loved your birthday parties.
I think that's what opened up that door of trust of saying it's fine. It's not gonna happen like we think. That if we know a cop and they're gonna contact the border patrol and then boom, we're out. I think it was a ignorant thought.
But do you think a lot of people suffer from that though? Like, do you think
Yes, to
a
this.
lot of folks that have come to the US looking for that dream actually have nightmares of that exact circumstance?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was a police officer, um, I yeah, I dealt with that a lot of please don't deport me.
Right.
Or yeah, that's still that thought. And so I connect with them, right? Because I had that thought when I was little too. So I understand them.
I'm just amazed though, because you were such a great kid. I remember you like we were always like, man, she is so mature for her age because you were taking care of your family. You were doing all the speaking and um and it's kind of crazy now that I look back. I never once thought to ask you if you were afraid of things, if you were okay, if you needed something more, like you never you never seemed like you had struggles. Like you were like the rock in that family.
Yeah, I want to say I still am. And I think it was because um and I'm the baby, right? I'm the
Right.
baby. I'm the youngest out of all my brothers. My oldest sister is 52. Um, but I think there has been always something in me that I just needed to be just very um awake, right? And just go get her.
Yeah, no, you definitely have done a great job with that. So talk to me now about, so you have a false social security just so you can work to provide for your family.
Hmm.
And eventually though, you realize like that's not gonna work.
Yeah, well, as soon as my mom became a resident, that's when I had hope. So actually, it's kind of it's sad because when I was in high school, I still was illegal. I didn't know that I was gonna get papers. So I didn't take the SAT. I didn't even bother to try to go to college because I knew that wasn't a thing. It wasn't possible. So this was before the Dreamers Act. The Dreamers Act came out, I would say 5 years after. And so due to that, I didn't try to go to college, but I once again we started the process. We contacted a lawyer, and the lawyer said, before you turn 18, you have to leave the country. And so that is because you're not a child anymore. Well, you're considered an adult at 18. So that means that you're staying in the US illegally on because you want to. Not, you can't blame it on your parents anymore that they brought you
Okay.
over illegally. And so at 17 and 12 and 10 months before I turned 18, we left. We left to Mexico. So I couldn't wait for that in
So
Mexico.
so the legal advice was because your parents brought you and then your status changed to illegal. But now that you're almost 18, you have to go back to a place that you haven't lived in almost 10
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're pretty American by this time. Like your
Yeah.
formative years are all here. You're speaking English, you're going to school, you're working, you're graduating. But because of the way that law is, you had to leave and go to a place where
Mm-hmm.
you were technically a stranger again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So talk to us too. So you guys decide, okay, Brenda has to go back to Mexico. So you go back to Mexico City, then what happens?
Well, I want to talk about the way to Mexico City.
Yeah, please
That was
do.
very interesting. So we um, filled up the car of just stuff, TVs, clothes, so we could sell down there, to get to make money. And we're driving to Nogales, through Nogales, and we see signs that say Border Patrol ahead, checkpoint. And so we're like, oh my God, well, we're going to Mexico, so it's fine. It's not like we're going to get deported to Mexico, right? So then we get to the checkpoint and they ask us, where are you heading to? Mexico. Okay, can we see your ID? I didn't have an ID. I didn't have anything, right? So then my dad shows his and he's okay. But then when it comes to me, I don't have anything. So then they told us, okay, pull over to the side. Someone else is going to contact you. Um, Two guys get us out of the car. At that point, I felt like I was considered a criminal because they were not just, hey, can you step out of the car and go in that building. We went in and they're running us. They're asking us a whole bunch of questions. Why are we going? Blah blah blah. We had the application for our residency. We showed it to them, and they said, well, you had to first do a like request the border for you to get stamped to leave the country. So you're technically in the US illegally, so you're going to be deported. I
But you're
remember
already
just
leaving.
crying. What's that?
You were leaving.
Yeah, I was leaving. I remember telling him that we're leaving the US to Mexico. And they said, well, that doesn't matter because currently right now where you're stepping, you're in the US. So then they throw us in the back of of like a I don't know if you've seen the Border Patrol cars where they transport people. It looks
Yep,
like a dog van, they transport dogs. I remember my dad and I, and it's a little emotional because it was not a good experience, right? But
sure.
um, I remember just sitting there and praying. We were just praying because we didn't know if that was going to affect my process and my dad's process to get papers. And so it's funny because it actually helped us. We needed that stamp to say we left the US. So
Okay.
fast forward when we actually got our interview, they said that if we wouldn't have had that stamp that we got deported, we wouldn't have been approved. So everything happens for a reason, but the reason
Yeah.
why I get so emotional is because we were so afraid, yet it was meant to be.
Mm. I love that perspective. And that's probably why you're a rock star you are, Brenda, in life is that perspective. But you were following a lawyer's advice, like the lawyer told you to go
Mm-hmm,
back.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you thought you were doing the right thing.
I thought, yeah, and that's why we were so confused. We thought we were doing the right thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
okay.
so, yeah, it was crazy.
Did they take your belongings and stuff, or eventually did you get back to your car and were able to drive on?
So a border patrol agent drove our car to the border of Mexico. They told us, get out of the van, your car's on the other side. So then we walked over to the other side and just kept driving. Well, when we get to the Mexican border to cross, that's when it got a different problem. Um, they're
Ah,
called aduanas. I don't know how to say it in English, but it's the people who check for like your to pay taxes of what you're bringing over, right? So he saw our car full of TVs and valuable stuff, and he told my dad put $2,000 underneath the car seat, or else we're gonna take all your stuff. And my dad said, we don't have that. We don't have 2,000. And he started cussing out my dad. Well, you're gonna have to have 2,000 because you're not gonna want to drive down the highway because someone can get killed. So by that, I learned it was he can contact any cartel guy,
yeah.
anyone, and just stop us, and something will happen. And I remember he said, your daughter is very pretty, so I'm sure something can happen. And so, holy cow, right? I'm crying. My dad's freaking out. Um, and we were able to give him 1,000, but that's all the cash we had. I remember I had $800 in my wallet from what I had been saving, and we gave that up along with more money. And so we were driving with no money left at
Uh,
all.
and Mexico is a big country. For those of you that have not driven along that, like you had a few days of travel from the border to
Mm-hmm.
Mexico City to have no
Mm-hmm.
money.
Yep. Yep.
Was your
So that was.
was your spirit just crushed, Brenda? Like
Oh yeah.
what were you like, oh my gosh, on the American side, I'm deported because I'm illegal. I get to the Mexican side where I'm supposed to be home, even though I haven't been, this isn't my home for the last 10 years. And now they're
Mm-hmm.
shaking me down or threatening me with violence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember, yeah, my dad and I were just crying as we were driving down the highway.
Oh man. Your dad was
Yeah.
crying too. Well, here's a
Oh yeah.
retired policeman, right? He's done tough things in life. He's obviously cares about his family, trying to get a better life for you guys. And I can only imagine how heartbroken he was. Like, what have we done?
Mm-hmm. I think he was also afraid for something to happen, of them actually calling someone and someone just showing up, because we still had our TVs, and like we left with everything we had still. So it would have been easy for someone to just rob us, right?
Yeah.
So I think he was very afraid of that too, now that I'm looking back.
Gosh, what were the conversations like in the car then? So you get through the shakedown, the Mexico side of the border, and you guys are just flying. You're like, let's just get to Mexico City as fast
Mm-hmm,
as we can.
mm-hmm.
What were the conversations like in the car?
um what's going to happen, just what is going to happen. And I remember saying, I want to go back to the US. I mean, I had my boyfriend, I had my family,
Yeah,
um everything. My life was in Fort Collins. Going to Mexico City, that it's Mexico City, it's one of the biggest cities in the world.
right.
So I was just super scared, super scared.
So you do make it safe to Mexico City, but if I remember right, this is where the time frame of what the lawyer said it was going to take you to get approved and come back changes again.
Hmm. So the lawyer said it was going to be a month. So I actually took a backpack with me of one pair of jeans, couple shirts, and it ended up being a year and 8 months.
So your legal advice, you're told to cross the border, do all this. Nothing's working out like the lawyer told you. You're going to be
Mm-mm.
back in the U.S. as a month, back with your family, back to your job and the life you've had since an 8-year-old little girl.
Yep.
And it turns out to be 20 months before you're allowed to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the reason? What were they telling you? Why did it happen like that?
Well, at that point, we lost communication with the lawyer because all they kept saying was, you gotta wait, you gotta wait. Um, so I think 6 months in, that's when I just kind of gave up and said, it's not gonna happen. So might as well, I need to start. I'm 18, right? I need to go to school. I need to do something with my life. So I went to beauty school. And I worked and I sold clothes in the market. Um, and so one day I opened up my email and it said you have an interview in 30 days in the uh, Juarez consul. And so, I mean, obviously I started yelling, screaming of happiness. Um, and so that was another experience starting from there.
But then you had to go to Juarez,
Yep, we had to go to Juarez.
which is how far away?
Oh gosh, I mean,
A
it's in
couple
the border.
days?
I remember we actually went in an airplane.
Oh,
Yeah,
so you
we
flew.
had to. Yeah, we flew. Yeah, my brother sent us money, so we were able to fly over.
Was there no offices in Mexico City that would have been close? It just seems to me like it's another hurdle, like to make
Yeah,
this hard for you.
yeah. So there are offices in Mexico City, but all of the processes are in Juarez.
Mm.
That's where all the immigration process is.
So
Why I
you fly up there for your interview.
Mm-hmm.
How's that go?
So it was a 3-day process. So the first day I had to have a physical. So I had to have all of my vaccinations. Um, it was kind of like if you're in the army, they just put you in a room and you're next to another girl and they're just checking, it's just yeah, it was a very interesting experience. But so there was a physical and then after that we had to wait for me to get the results if I passed my physical. If I did, then I would stay that following day to have an interview, and so which I did. And I remember sitting down in the waiting room. I mean, there was hundreds of people, hundreds, and I would see people walking out with an orange little piece of paper. And so I remember asking the girl next to me, "Do you know why people are walking out with that paper?" And she said, "Oh, that's the people that are getting denied.
Ooh.
This is my third time being here, and I've been getting denied, but I'm here." So in my head, I said, "Oh gosh,"
Oh no.
praying again and just hoping that I will just pass. And so I remember they called up my name and I go up there and I couldn't even speak. They were talking to me in Spanish and I couldn't even speak. And he said to me, "You can talk in English. I know English." And I couldn't, words could not come out. I was shaking. I think I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised I didn't faint. Um, but yeah, they asked why did I come over? Who brought me over? They asked me, "Do you remember bringing a lot of luggage?" And I said, no, no, I don't. And just random questions, right? What did your parents tell you?
So were they talking to
Um,
you about like the first time you came over? They're asking you,
yes,
okay.
yes, uh-huh.
So that's
Did
10
they
years ago. So now they're talking to
mm-hmm,
18-year-old Brenda about
yep,
8-year-old Brenda.
yep, mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm. And so they were typing for a good, gosh, to me it felt like 10 minutes. And he said, "It looks here like you got deported last year." And that was the time when I
Yeah.
got deported. And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay," and types again. And then he just stamps and says, "Welcome to the US."
Oh, wow.
And It's a feeling that I will never forget for the rest of my life.
So what exactly paperwork was that stamp for? Like residency
It's
or?
yeah, my residency.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that was going to allow you to stay how long in the US?
that was gonna allow me to just be I'm sorry, legal
Legal.
and cross over and have all the benefits. The only benefit as a resident that I didn't have was to vote.
Okay. But you could work
But
with no issues.
mm-hmm,
You got your own social security number.
mm-hmm,
So that's a huge day.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Who
Yeah.
was with you at that interview? Who took you up to Juarez?
My mom and my dad, both of them.
How'd they respond?
Oh, we were so happy. Oh gosh. It was
Ugh.
yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Did you end up going back to Mexico City or did you guys just jump in the car and
Oh
cross right
no.
then?
Oh no, we just left. Yeah. We went, yeah, back to Colorado.
Oh my goodness, that's such a crazy story. What was the biggest learning point for you in that whole process? When you look back, like what is it you're like, okay, this is what I was meant to learn from this whole deal.
Not take anything for granted. And there is there's worse out there. And what I mean by that is I struggled and I am who I am now because of this. Um, and there's other people that are struggling even more or struggled even more than my experience. And so I always like to, and I'm kind of going a different route with your question, but I
Love it.
always want to be an advocate to the rest of the people that did just what I did, look for that American dream. Um, so I just want to be the stepping stone for others.
Yeah, and what I love, I'll never forget when so you finished high school and we had kind of lost touch for a little bit because we
Mm-hmm.
moved and you guys obviously you were in Mexico, so we didn't even know where you were. And we ran into, I forget where we ran into you guys somewhere.
Yeah, Wells Fargo. I was a
Well,
teller,
that's right.
drive
You were,
through.
yeah, we're like, oh my gosh, Brenda's all grown up. And then you emailed me because you wanted to become a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about that career field that you were like, I want to do this?
So my dad was a police officer, and then I had a neighbor. You were kind of the person that opened up that door of I can be a police officer. They're nice. They're not bad people.
Right.
They're nice people. So I want to be that. I grew up being afraid of cops, and so I was done being afraid of cops. Um, because I saw my nephews be afraid of cops, and I knew that they weren't bad people, so I wanted to let others know they're not bad people to the Hispanic community. And in high school, I wanted to do a ride along. We had to do a page of what do you want to your career, and
Yeah.
I remember I was told I couldn't because I was illegal. I couldn't do a ride along because I was illegal. So then when I had papers, I can do anything I want. So I'm gonna be a cop.
Right.
And so that's why yeah.
And I love it because it wasn't easy for you even there. Like it was a struggle. Because now, if I remember right, you actually went to community college in the fire program. I remember
Mm-hmm.
pictures of you wanting to be a firewoman. And then you got your common
Yes.
sense. You're like, no, let me be a policewoman first.
Yeah. I don't want to sleep all day. No, I'm just kidding.
And you fought hard to get into that profession.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what an amazing story. What was your favorite part? So you get into law enforcement and you make it. Was there a favorite moment or something where you're like, man, like I can do pretty much anything now that I've done all of this?
Um, oh, many things. I would say my family, they would have never thought of me being a police officer. Kids, seeing that the kids, the Hispanic community, and letting them know, don't be afraid of police. Police are there to help you. They're not gonna deport you
Right.
because I grew up thinking that. And so that was one of the things that I always try to do. Let them know that we're good people. And so I would love it when they would come up to me and say my name, Officer Rice, Officer Mujica, um, and just give me a hug and thank me. And yeah, that's what made me happy.
That's so amazing. And now you've switched gears, and I love that you're into realty. You're doing
Mm-hmm.
realtor work, and I love that you're really focused on helping other Hispanic families, or families that maybe don't necessarily feel comfortable going to a realtor because either they don't speak the language or it's just not a relationship they have, qualify for home ownership. How rewarding
Mm-hmm.
is that for you?
Oh yeah. Um, yeah. It's the other side, right? So I help them on their worst times, and then I am able to help them at their best times to accomplish that American dream. Um, and sometimes they don't even know it's possible, and they're very well qualified, but they just have that in their mind that they can't do it. And so when I give them the news and when we close on that home, it's another feeling that it's okay. I'm doing what I need to do, and is to help.
How do we how do we help more? How do we let, because like that is the American dream, right? Like you come here, you work hard, you save your money, you buy a house. That's what we're always told. Like that is America.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
how do we let more people know it is possible for them? Whether they want to own a house or not, how do we just let them know like that you can still have your dreams here?
I think I think it's fear that the community has because we're not in our country, right? So it's hard because just more resources, more um, talking to them and make them feel like they're worthy
Mm,
of accomplishing that American dream. Um,
love that.
it's just very hard. It's trying to bridge that gap of illegal and fear with you're in the US and it can be possible, yet I'm hoping I make sense,
I love it.
but it's
Absolutely.
hard.
I
Yeah.
think you hit it on the head. You got to have that self-worth,
Hmm.
right? And if we use terms like illegal alien and um, fear, like you said, it's hard to live in a light. It's hard to be seeing optimistic and what's possible if everything about you says it's not.
Hmm.
Right? It says it's
Hmm.
illegal, like you're sneaky, you got to do this. So I just hope that people hear this interview and they follow Brenda because she's an amazing person. I'm so glad to call a friend. And I could tell you stories about having them over to the house and birthday parties at their house. And I know my kids always want to know how come our birthday parties weren't as cool as your guys' birthday parties. But
Oh man.
and I just yeah, it's such a great family. I loved seeing you guys all in one house and just how tight you were. And I just applaud you for handling the struggles the way you have, Brenda, and the positive influence you are in the world now. We're so proud of you.
Well, thank you. Thank you a lot.
Where can our listeners follow you or connect with you on social media to either, support you as a realtor or just learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah. Facebook, Brenda Mujica Rice. And then also on Instagram, Bren, it's Brenda Mujica Rice again.
Okay.
We also have a page, real estate page that is R&R team with C3 Real Estate Solutions. So it's myself and my business partner Fabian that we work together. We recently both just left law enforcement and going for full-time real estate.
I love it. Well, much success to you, my friend. And if we can help you in any way, all you got to do is reach out to us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brenda.